And Nick Mullins, you got to be able to score at point-blank range.
But from that moment forward, it was the Josh Allen show. Spectacular.
Yeah, he did a great job of recognizing the coverages that the 49ers secondary was in, and he was able to get the ball to the open guy all night long.
And the open guy there is Cole Beasley, who had 113 receiving yards in the first half. That one tied it at 7. This one, Dawson Knox, flying through the air, and the Bills have the lead.
A lot of weapons for Josh Allen in that receiving core for the Buffalo Bills. They don't get a lot of credit, but they got some talent in that group.
Buffalo up 17-10. Third quarter on a second down. It's Allen. Oh, it's Isaiah McKenzie for the score.
Great job by Brian Daboll recognizing man coverage, dialing up a pick play for McKenzie, and Josh Allen puts it right on him.
So San Francisco again playing with Nick Mullins at quarterback, trying to stay in it. That's a 49-yard throw to Ayuk. That would set up this touchdown to Juszczyk. So the 49ers hanging around.
Hanging around, but just not enough firepower in comparison to what Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills were bringing into the table. They just couldn't keep pace.
That's exactly right. Fourth quarter, 10 minutes to go. It's 27-17 Buffalo. It's Allen. Look at the time he has to throw. And there's Davis for the touchdown.
And look at Josh Allen give Richard Sherman a little head and shoulders right there. Sherman bites up on the one in front. And, of course, the guy behind him is the one he hits.
Desperation now for San Francisco, trying to get back in, down 17. That's Mullins. He's looking. He's throwing. It's tipped, and it's picked. Tre'Davious White, say goodnight. The Bills hold on to win it 34-24. Josh Allen, 375 yards and 4 touchdowns on the night. Don't look now, but Josh Allen is in the MVP, maybe the periphery, but the MVP conversation. And our good calls brought to you by Subway. There were a lot of them last night. And, Jeff, let's start with you on what they were. What do we say about the performance of Josh Allen last night?
Special. Wow. Listen, he played absolutely lights out last night. And you watch him, whether he was in the pocket, whether he was buying time and extending plays, getting outside the pocket, he was lethally accurate, man. I mean, you talk about just a guy who had poise and had confidence in what he was doing, trusting his receivers to make plays. But whether they were trying to run zone or man, he exploited it all. And I tell you, last night you saw why the Buffalo Bills are so high on Josh Allen. This is a good defense he beat up on. Listen, at all 3 levels, the San Francisco 49ers are legitimate. He took advantage at all 3 levels. Very special performance by Josh Allen last night.
Greg, through a quarterback's eyes, what did you see?
He's amazing, guys. I'm seeing this guy move off the spot. The last couple of years in the league, he was a runner. I mean, that's who he was. He was a great athlete playing quarterback. Well, now he's become a great quarterback that is also an athlete. His ability to move off the spot and be athletic at the position. The guy's got top 10 legs at the position in the NFL. And he might have top 5 arm talent. His ability to move and take advantage on 1st and 10. It's ridiculous. 1st and 10, you're keeping the 49ers off balance throughout the entire time of the entire game. And how about 2015 Cam Newton? I would say that was a pretty good year, guys. I don't know if y'all recall. But if you look at the numbers and how they stack up through 12 games, Josh Allen is actually significantly better than Cam Newton was in his MVP season. Touchdowns, completion percentage, total yardage are all very comparable. And the fact that he takes care of the football, he's Cam Newton but more accurate. It's remarkable to watch this young man's development.
Sorry, spectacular, no question about it. So, Chris, I'll come to you here. We saw Pittsburgh stumble, but they were 11-1. The Chiefs have just 1 loss. I think we'll give those 2 the top spot right now in the AFC. Are the Bills next?
Yeah, I think the Bills are the 3rd team in the AFC. And after watching what we saw yesterday, you could probably make a case that they're the 2nd best team in the AFC just based on their resume. They got quality wins against the Dolphins, the Rams, the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Seahawks. So when you look at this football team, even when they don't play at their best, they find ways to win. In the 3 losses that they have, no shame in those against Kansas City, Tennessee, and a Hail Mary against Arizona.
So what you're telling me is the College Football Playoff Committee would be very impressed with their resume.
Very impressed with this resume. But here's the thing. Josh Allen, we were waiting for the evolution of the player. The physical gifts have never been a question. He went through a little bit of a lull in the middle of the season after getting off to a terrific start. But now we're seeing him start to come back around. And just the way that he picked apart that defense for the 49ers, really impressive.
And as I said, they get Pittsburgh in their place in Orchard Park this Sunday night. So they will be able to, again, anytime anything bad happens in my life, I want Mike Tomlin explaining to me the positive side of it. But so let's look at this, Jeff, so many different directions. What is your number 1 takeaway from last night's game?
It was a perfect storm against the Steelers. I mean, ultimately, this team, they never established the run, Greeny. They get down. They have a chance to win the game on a third down. They decide to throw it on the third and fourth down. I don't like that either. If you're going to go for it, you're not going to kick the field goal. At least give them one shot at trying to run the thing in, and then they missed to McFarland down the sideline. Just kind of a frustrating turn of events if you're a Steelers fan. But again, this whole thing will sit there. The football team has a very good defensive front, and they just outplayed Pittsburgh.
And for the second game in a row, Greg, the Steelers with a lot of drops, a lot of mistakes. It almost cost them on Wednesday against Baltimore, and last night it did.
It's amazing, Greeny. I mean, for an organization that is among the best in the NFL at developing wide receivers, why is it that they continue to leave so many plays on the field? Last night, 7 drops. 7. That's the most by a Steelers team in 15 years. That's the most by any team in the NFL this year. They now, on the season, with 1 loss, it's amazing, they have 31 drops. The next closest team in the NFL has 21. They're 10 clear of the number on the team that's coming right now in second in regards to drops. They just can't leave those plays on the field when going against top-level competition.
And so let's talk a little bit about the circumstance. I'm fond of this phrase. Some things are excuses. Other things are reasons, okay? The Washington football team had 11 days between games, Jeff, Saturday. The Steelers had 5. And Hambo sent me this note. The Steelers are the first team in 50 years to play a game with that level of disparity in the schedule. Do you believe that was a factor last night?
Absolutely, I believe it's a factor. And listen, you saw the Steelers, they talked about the frustration with the Ravens game leading up to it, the game getting moved, all the distractions. Listen, we've never seen what's going on. And for these types of events to continue to get moving, it's definitely the frustration was there. But ultimately, Greeny, in my mind, this goes back to the run game and being able to establish it. Mike Tomlin understands you have to be physical in football. Right now, they're not a physical football team, and they got exposed against the Ravens and against Washington last night.
All right, so Chris Canty, let me come to you, because let's give credit where it's due. We said this a couple of weeks ago when we were trying to figure out who in the NFC East was really good. There's one unit, if you will, in that division that is clearly special, and that is the front 7 in Washington, and they won that game last night.
Yeah, and we knew Washington's front 7 would be good coming into the season just based on the draft capital that they put in that unit. But last night in that ball game, they absolutely dominated the front of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The offensive line could not get any movement at the line of scrimmage, and you saw it in that second quarter goal line stand that they had. The Pittsburgh Steelers had 6 cracks at it, including 4 runs by Benny Snell. They still weren't able to punch it in, and you saw the physicality right there. That group was able to keep that game close for the Washington football team. Their offense couldn't get right. They were 0 for 8 on third downs in the first half, but they were able to do just enough to make sure that they kept it within reach, and then that offense clicked in the second half.
So a little later in this hour, we're going to get deeply into what this means for Washington and the NFC East race. But let me just ask this simply to you, Jeff Saturday. The Steelers are 29th in the league in rushing. Last night, it appeared they didn't even want to bother to try. Do you believe they can win the Super Bowl that way?
No. You listen, they're going to have to they don't have to be a top 10 rushing team, but they have to be able to establish the run. And even, Chris just brought up a great point on the goal line early in the game. At some point, you got to give Roethlisberger the chance to run that thing in a QB sneak. I don't care if it's a design run in the back, but backing them up 5 yards and trying to do RPOs. Listen, teams play against it. They script it. They've all seen it in college. At some point, it's got to be the guy in front of me. I got to dominate him. And right now, the Steelers aren't even giving themselves the opportunity because they're never even attempting it, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. I think at some point, Tomlin understands he's got to get back to physical football. That's got to be the onus coming up for this Buffalo Bill week.
To be clear, they have played the last 2 games without James Conner, who's on the COVID list. But still, Greg, final thought on that Steeler offense. Do they look ready for prime time? And prime time obviously means January.
They got to start adjusting to what they're giving people. They're becoming a little predictable, guys. Against Baltimore, Chris just referenced the fact that there were 4 tip passes in the game. Against Baltimore, they threw the ball under 2.5 seconds 37 times. So we now know, hey, we might not be able to rush Ben Roethlisberger. Let's get the ball out of our hands quickly. And these defensive lines are adjusting. So you got to run the football and you got to keep them off balance, because right now the Pittsburgh Steelers are just a little bit predictable with their short passing game and their quick throws as well.
All right, so that was one of 2 games last night. You know who the Steelers get next?